Hi everyone, my name is Tim. I'm Senior Application Specialist at ATR Soft. In today's webinar, we will continue adding more intelligence to our profile from previous webinar. With me today, I have my wingman, the I'm not stalking you sales manager, Mr. Francois Simon, who will answer your questions. You can use the chat box in the GoToWebinar panel. I'm going to make room after the session for more questions to let you follow the presentation better. We expect it to be a pretty short webinar in the range of about 15 minutes. The webinar is being recorded as always and will be made available online later on. Okay, well, let's get started. This is the big picture. I will cover these topics today, and then I suspect we need to do at least one more webinar on setting up a profile. But today we're going to create a sequence, make description properties, utilize a hierarchical lookup list. We're going to add a project, and we're going to use model combinations to drive a file name, and then end up with setting up a basic Excel reporting. Okay, let's dive into it and have a look at everything live. So in the last webinar, just to make a recap, we set up this basic profile. Here we can define a project as well as a file name and type in some descriptions. Now, I would like to make this a bit more clever. We already put in some logic to our profile, but I would like to add a bit more. So I'm not going to dwell too much in this window. I'm just going to dig right into the properties and set up a sequence number. So the first I'm going to do is add a sequence. The sequences can be found under the sequence node, and then you just add a sequence to your profile. So this one is going to be called demo. I have decided that this is a 4-digit sequence, so the max value would be 9999, and the next value would be 1. For the format date, you can actually type in text. That could be if you had part sequence and assembly sequence, you could type in P dash and then the sequence. And then you could always distinguish if it was a part or an assembly sequence. But we're not going to do that in today's webinar. So for now, I'm just going to settle on a 4-digit format. And we will get back here and talk about these optional settings a bit later. So that's it. That is a sequence defined. Now to utilize a sequence, I need to edit the file name. In the file name, I can go next, and then I can use a button function to get a code. When I define to get a code, we tell CustomTools that we are going to use a sequence for this one. So I'm going to go next, 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 and then we can select to use all sequences or selected sequences. In this case, all sequences is just fine. So if I say finish to that, and then from this part that I just opened, I can go to properties now. This is going to add a button into the interface, so I can click on that one, and then I can retrieve the sequence from my sequence generator and just hit OK. And now I'm basically ready to save that file. So it will be saved. Yeah, I already have one called 01. So I'm just going to overwrite that one. So that's the basic part of it. Now I have a sequence in place. I would like to add a bit more logic, because right now I have descriptions 1, 2, and 3. And these are actually like dependent lists. So if I select car, I then need to select which car type and then what component type it is, for instance. So to do that, I could actually utilize a hierarchical lookup list. So let me just take you back into the options again, because you already have one defined. The lookup list is this node. And in here I have an item category when you open it first time, it will look like this. So it's a small item box you can type values into. But I already have quite a few from the demo content profile that we have. So these are the ones that I'm going to use. As you can see, we have indented lists. So we have control systems, and then under that, we have component adapter, CPU memory, IO module, and then under that one, we have Festo, Omron, other. So we can build a hierarchical list, like a folder structure that you see in Windows, for instance. So I'm going to use that one. But just to show you, if I wanted to create a list, you could type in a name, that could be car, and then you can select what type of lookup list this is. So this one is a hierarchical list. And then I can type in different car brands. So that could be regular or a supercar. If I want to add child levels to that, I could just select the line and then add a child row. And here I could type in Ferrari, for instance, and then under the supercar, I could add a new child row and call that Saab, for instance. So now we have regular cars and we have supercars. I'm not going to use that list, but just to give you an idea. You can add as many levels as you want, so you can go another one and type in as you go. So this is basically how you're going to create a lookup list. Now, these hierarchical lists can grow quite big on you, and this is why we enable that you can open up to maximize window, which makes it a lot more easy to work on. So just go out of that one. But I'm going to use that item category for my description 1, 2, and 3. So for description 1, I'm going to edit that one. And this is actually a different type. It's not an edit box. I need to select a combo box here. Then I'm going to browse to the left, no, to the right by clicking on next. And at some point, I'm going to meet the lookup list to use. In this case, I'm going to use the item category, and it's going to show the content of that list at this level. So this is the level 1, and these are the options that I can select from this level. If that is okay, I can go finish. Now I'm going to add the next level. Again, this is the combo box. Go next a few times, and then use the same lookup list, the item category. But this time, I'm going to drive the content depending on a source property. So based on description 1, we want to return what is on the next level. So that is ident 2. So now I return everything that is lying directly under the first level. Okay, finished that one, and then I can do the same for list 3 or description 3. I can select that this is a combo box, go next a few times, use the item category, and based on what I select in description 2 this time, we're going to return all on that level. Okay, let's have a look. So if I go to properties on my file now, we can see that we have drop lists available. So if I select the control systems, I can select the component adapter or the CPU. Now, the component adapter, I know there is nothing below that. If I select the CPU, there was something underneath that. So by doing this, I can add different levels of information to my properties. And these are, of course, put into the description 1, 2, and 3 under the document as well. But I would like to do a bit more, actually. I would like to have a project defined as well. So I'm going to go back into my options. And we're always open to this profile option projects. So for this one, I want to add in a new project. So that is just by pressing the add button. And we could call that demo again. And the project number, in my case, would be 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use any number you want, of course. To make sure that we are not making anything bad, that is not the right word, but we can always check the predefined general project and look at the values defined for that one. Currently that is set as project number 1, and maybe I don't want to have that. I might want to need 0 for this one. So you can edit that one with pretty straightforward moves. I mean, that is just edit that one and you can change whatever you have for that one. But to use this one, I actually need to do a bit more. So now I'm going in for a model combination because I want to use the project number, and I also want to use the project number as well as my sequence to define my file name. So now we're getting a bit more advanced in our file naming. But to do this, I'm going to create, for this case, 2 combination properties. I'm going to add one and call that for project. And as the format string, I'm just going to return the project number. So we already have a predefined rule for that. So if you click on this guy, you can return the project number or the project name. I want to have the project number. Hit OK for that one. And then we added in a combination property. But I need to have one more. So I'm going to add another one and call that the file name. And these names, by the way, can be anything you want. Just give them a name that refer back to what you're going to use them for, because that makes it a lot more easy if you have a lot of combinations later on. And you most likely will, because combinations is a pretty good thing to be using. So for this one, this is going to drive my file name. Okay. So I'm going to create a project number, make a dash, and then use the sequence code. But actually, yeah, that's driven right now by the file name. So let me just pick that. This is not what I need because my file name is already the sequence, right? So the file name already returns my sequence. So maybe I want to define this one differently. Maybe I want to call this a sequence instead. Or maybe I just need to add a new property and call that the sequence. So I'm going to do that exactly. And then go next, get code, and then finish. Because actually I want the file name to be the file name. I don't want to interrupt with that. So the sequence needs to be the sequence. So now I'll return a project and a sequence. So going back to my model combination, I need to do something else in here. I'm not going to return the file name. I'm going to return the sequence. And then I need to model my file name. So I'm using that combination. So now I'm opening up the file name property. I don't need to get a code anymore. Now I need to return a combination instead. And the combination is the file name. That was quite a bit of work. I hope you didn't get too confused during that. But let's see. We're going to create a new part file, the bracket. So it's a new part file. If I go to the properties for this one, I can now select. Oh, I didn't do the project. Sorry about that. Better do that. So the model property for the project, I also need to return with a get combination and then return the project number. So now that's set. Okay. So now the project selected is 0, general, and then we return the project 0. If I add in a sequence to that one, we now combine the file name as 0-02. If I were to swap this project, I would need to reselect the sequence, and that would combine my new file name. So this is how you can combine your file names with sequence and project numbers, for instance. And we have the option to define content for our list as well. Okay. Now let me just actually save this file because I want to use that for an Excel report as well. So I'm just going to select some properties on this one. Create it today. Material would be plain carbon steel maybe, and give it a color. Not really important. Where? And save that one. So now I have a part file that is saved, and now I want to create an Excel report of how the properties are defined. So basically from scratch, I'm going to set up an Excel report as well. You do that by going to the node Excel profiles. And in here, we already have two in our demo content. So the CustomTools raw structure and then an Excel report. This means that the Excel script is already loaded, most likely. So it's just a matter of adding in a new export profile name. And this one could be my export. The output path is where you are going to put the Excel file that you're going to create. And we have some different tools to do that. For this one, I'm just going to go really simple. The source path is where the file is saved. And I'm going to use the source file name as well. So now we are taking the file name and just adding the Excel extension to that one. But you could do anything you want. You could basically add a folder in here someplace and call it export, just by typing like you would create a folder structure in Windows Explorer, for instance. But let's not do that in this webinar. Keep it simple. When you run an export, you need to define what type of bill of material you want to output. Is it the top level only? Is it parts only? Or is it indented assemblies? For this one, parts only would make sense. But you could also go with indented assemblies, for instance. During export of an Excel report or a bill of material in Excel, you can run different conversion rules. And if you remember from last webinar, we did a PDF and a step conversion. So if I wanted to create step files of my part files, I could do that just by adding a tick mark to that one. If I wanted to handle drawings during this, that would be the PDF files, then I need to include drawings in my Excel report to load the reference to the drawing, and then I can convert to PDF, for instance, during this as well. Let's not do that as well. So basically that is all I need. I have the option to open the output file once completed, and I want to do that because then I don't have to browse for the file. So now I have my export profile defined, and now I actually just need to add some content to it. So that is clicking on new in the profile fields, and then we have some different content types you can pick from. So the first one I want to use is a SOLIDWORKS property. These are default properties that you see in a regular bill of material. So SOLIDWORKS property, I would like to have the part number, and we automatically insert the label defined on the field data. So if it says part number, it's going to say part number down here. And I can add a new one. That would be SOLIDWORKS again, because I want to have the quantity. And that is going to return the label quantity. If you don't want to have quantity, you can type in QTY if you want. These are just your own labels. So basically you can type in anything you want. Then I need to have some CustomTools properties, and that could be description 1, description number 2, and description number 3. I could also add in a property for material, for instance. So that's a CustomTools attribute. Don't get fooled by the CustomTools attribute. These actually the attributes that you define in the document with CustomTools. So these are actually document properties, basically. So the CustomTools attribute, we want to have material as well. Okay, that's it. So if everything is working as it should, and most likely it won't because this is how things are working, I can now export that guy. My export, yeah, typically. That is actually a trick that we made on purpose. So you need to have in here that it's called Excel. That is how it is. So now it's going to work perfectly. Export that one. And here is the Excel file. So this is just the demo content that we have. If you want to have the preview image made larger, you can actually do that pretty easy. You can go to the CustomTools admin, go to Manage Script, and then find the Excel export file. And from here, and now it's getting a bit technical, you go to the additional files, because this is where we store the template file for the export. And you can double click that one. It will open up in Excel, and you might take note which column the preview was in, but you can also just grab a bunch of columns and say, well, I don't care. I just want to have these made a bit wider. So you can format those and say default width would be maybe 20. There it is. And just save that one. So you don't have to do anything apart from that. So now if I run the export directly, that should result in a bigger preview. Oh, maybe not, but it should be doing the trick. You might need to do a restart of SOLIDWORKS again. So let me just check. Yeah. That's actually all that we had to show for today. So as I said at the end of the last webinar, there will be a series of webinars to get you pretty well introduced into using the software. You will be able to make the most common profiles based on the knowledge that we share with you here. And essentially this is going to be then admin training as well as end user training sessions. If there are anything in here that are not covered, we or your reseller can assist you in reaching the correct setup. Anyway, the next webinar will be on April 6th, same time as today. Not actually, we are going to start at the normal time. That would be 10 GMT plus 1. Yeah, so basically we're open for questions when the recording is stopped. But first, I want to thank you all for attending this webinar, and I hope to see you all for the next one. Thank you and have a nice day.
We are in the life-saving business. We kill your routines before they kill you.